the cadet from Seoul. The Galactic Coalition Academy was carved into the orbit of Cygnus 7, a planet cloaked in ultraviolet storms and surrounded by satellite moons like vigilant sentinels. Only the elite trained here. Officers from 100 star systems, born under blue suns or methane skies, heirs to planetary militaries with centuries of combat doctrine. And then there was Cadet Elena Rios. She stood just over 5 feet tall, her black hair cropped tight, her posture textbook perfect. Her uniform, crisp and cobalt blue, bore the insignia of Earth's nascent entry into the Galactic Coalition, a silver spiral wrapped around a golden star. No one else on base wore it. Her fellow cadets called her primitive behind her back. Monkey Girl when they were feeling bold. They laughed when she outperformed them in zero-G drills, mocked her when she used instinct instead of tactical AI. But she didn't retaliate. Not then. Today, she sat quietly in Tactical Hall Alpha, her stylus poised over her datapad, her attention fixed on the towering figure before the class. General Tkarn. He was 7 feet of plated muscle, encased in ceremonial battle armor from the Threxian front. His skin was a sickly gray-green, marked with scars that shimmered like molten metal. His voice, when it echoed through the chamber, made the air hum with low-frequency vibration. "You are soldiers," Karn boomed, pacing before the cadets. "Not diplomats. You do not hesitate. You do not feel. You obey." Elena listened without reaction. She'd studied Threxian combat culture for months before coming. She knew they equated emotion with weakness, and Earth's emphasis on empathy made her an immediate target. Karn stopped mid-stride. His many-ringed eyes narrowed on her. "You, human." His voice dropped in pitch. "Are you listening? Or is your attention span as primitive as your species?" "Yes, General," Elena said clearly, meeting his gaze. Gasps rippled through the room. Karn turned slowly. "You dare make eye contact with a superior, cadet?" "I am trained to assess threats by sight, General," she replied coolly. A few cadets snorted. Others looked away, fearing what would happen next. Elena didn't blink. Karn stepped forward, towering over her now, his massive shadow eclipsing her desk. "Stand." She rose without hesitation. "Discipline," he growled, "is enforced through consequence." His armored hand rose and struck. A shockwave of silence followed the impact. Elena's head turned with the blow, a red mark blooming across her cheek. But she did not fall. She did not cry out. She exhaled once, softly, and slowly turned her head back to face him. Her eyes were calm. And then she moved. In one fluid motion, she stepped forward, rotated on her heel, and grabbed his wrist with both hands. Thumb pressed against a joint, elbow tucked low. A twist, a snap, a crunch. Karn roared in shock as his arm crumpled backward, his wrist bent at a sickening angle. The entire hall froze. She released him and stepped back. "Measured force," she said aloud, voice steady. "As per Coalition Regulation 9.2, subsection C, in response to unlawful physical aggression by a superior, self-defense is authorized if proportional and non-lethal." Security drones descended from the ceiling, glowing red. They hovered between her and the fallen general, scanning both with precision lasers. A siren pulsed once. "Cadet Rios, remain still," came the automated command. Elena obeyed. Her arms lowered, her hands unclenched. General Tkarn cradled his shattered wrist, breathing heavily, his pride more wounded than his bones. The silence shattered with urgent whispers. Alien cadets glanced at each other, uncertain. Some stared at Elena with shock. A few, just a few, nodded ever so slightly. The lead instructor, a translucent-skinned Valari named Commander Isthan, stepped forward, his voice a mix of awe and reprimand. "Elena Rios, you are to be detained pending tribunal review. General Tkarn will be escorted to medbay." Class dismissed. As the cadets filtered out, some casting her wide-eyed glances, Elena stood alone, surrounded by drones, but utterly composed. She had been slapped. She had answered. Not out of rage, not out of pride, but out of principle. She knew what would come. Trials, hearings, political backlash. But one thing had changed. In 5 seconds, she had shattered more than a wrist. She had shattered the myth of human weakness. Shockwaves through the stars. Elena Rios sat alone in a transparent containment chamber, high above the main training ring of the Galactic Coalition Academy. She was still in her cadet uniform, though her command badge had been removed. Outside the walls of the chamber, plasma-shielded drones hovered silently, watching her like hawks with no need to blink. She had not asked for a lawyer. She had not requested a statement. She simply waited. Down below, in the Academy's central hearing chamber, chaos simmered beneath the surface. Every broadcast console buzzed with clips of the incident. The strike, the calm retaliation, the unmistakable snap. The Galnet had seized on the footage like a beast finding fresh prey. Earth Cadet assaults Coalition General. Human combat response. Brutal or justified? Discipline or defiance? The Elena Rios incident divides the stars. On Earth, news channels hailed her. Protesters marched in front of coalition embassies with signs reading, "We don't bow." Others carried banners quoting Elena's words, "Measured force." Authorized response. On Threxia Prime, Tarn's injury was seen as a galactic humiliation. Honor riots broke out. There were calls for Earth's expulsion from the coalition. The tribunal convened in haste. 5 alien officials representing a spectrum of coalition species. Each had reviewed the footage. Each had received pressure from dozens of planetary governments. But none could ignore what they'd seen. Commander Isthin stood at the center of the tribunal platform, his voice echoing through the chamber. "We are here to evaluate the actions of Cadet Elena Rios, a citizen of Sol 3 Earth. The charges: assaulting a superior officer, endangering diplomatic stability, and violating behavioral conduct code. Section 48. A pause. General Tarn's conduct will also be reviewed." Elena entered without fanfare. She walked without fear. Her face was unreadable, her stride controlled. She saluted crisply and spoke first. "Permission to speak, Tribunal Chair?" "You may." "I acted within coalition regulation. I responded to unlawful violence from a superior officer with a non-lethal technique designed to incapacitate. My intention was defense, not harm." One of the tribunal members, a scaled Droskian with golden eyes, tilted its head. "Your method was extremely effective. It was designed to end the confrontation instantly," Elena replied. No further escalation occurred. A hologram lit the space above the table. The video replayed. The slap, the twist, the break. They watched it in silence. "Your emotional state?" asked another member, a jelly-like sphere named Vok. "Calm," she answered. "I was trained to never let anger guide my hand. And yet you disabled one of the Coalition's most decorated generals in front of 80 witnesses," said the Droskian. "Do you understand what that means?" "I understand that strength and hierarchy are not the same thing." The tribunal murmured among themselves. The final speaker was a Talari noble, an ancient species that had mentored dozens of younger races. Her voice was like wind on glass. "Do you regret your action, Cadet Rios?" Elena paused. Her voice remained soft. "I regret that violence was necessary. I do not regret defending myself." There was a long silence before the tribunal stood. The panel rules as follows. Cadet Elena Rios will not be expelled. Her actions were in accordance with Regulation 9.2. General Tarn is under separate review for misconduct. However, due to the diplomatic strain caused, Cadet Rios will be placed under mandatory psychological observation and combat suspension for 30 days. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Elena gave a respectful nod. Understood. As she was escorted from the room, the Galnet flashed again with breaking headlines. Back in her chamber, Elena was joined by Dr. Melivarin, a Luthri empath whose species communicated through emotion and memory resonance. She entered without weapons or guards, her luminous robes flowing like mist. "May I sit?" she asked. Elena nodded. "You've made quite the impression." "I didn't intend to," Elena said. Dr. V.A. Rin smiled gently. "That's what makes it genuine." She placed a hand on Elena's and closed her eyes. In an instant, she was inside. She saw flickers of Elena's life, fast and intense. Childhood in a colony dome, learning to breathe through hardship, sparring with her mother, a former UN peacekeeper, on cracked concrete floors, watching videos of aliens towering over humans, and swearing she'd never flinch. Nights studying the Coalition's treaties until her vision blurred. Dr. Varin opened her eyes, breath shallow. You are focused, disciplined. I had to be. Do you fear the other cadets? No. Do you hate them? Another pause. No. They just don't know who we are yet. Dr. Vierin leaned back, nodding slowly. Perhaps after this they will. As the counselor left, Elena turned to the stars beyond her window. Somewhere out there, Earth was buzzing with pride and worry. Somewhere, Tarn nursed a broken wrist and a shattered ego. But here, inside this glass cell, a cadet from Seoul had done the impossible. Not by shouting, not by pleading, by standing. And the galaxy was finally listening. Training day rewritten. The day Elena Rios was allowed back on the training floor, the silence hit harder than any punch. Her boots echoed down the obsidian metal hall, each step measured, unhurried. Cadets parted for her without a word. Conversations died in her presence. Some looked away in shame, others in fear, but most simply stared, as if seeing her for the first time. In the zero-G arena, training resumed. Or at least it was supposed to. Today's exercise, barked Commander Isthin, is rapid adaptation combat. No AI, no gear, no do-overs. Elena stood in line with the others, her stance perfectly balanced. A few cadets avoided looking at her. Two stepped away when they realized they'd been paired with her for the drill. Isthin's eyes narrowed. Cadet Rios, Station 12. Elena entered the chamber without hesitation. Across from her stood a Sarakian, 8 feet tall, skin like glass shards, for arms coiled with muscle. It smirked with too many teeth. Begin, said Isthin. The simulation launched. Gravity rotated every 12 seconds. Air pressure fluctuated. The floor morphed from solid to liquid to void. The Sarakian lunged. Elena didn't panic. She ducked under the first swipe, pivoted in zero-G, grabbed one of the alien's lower arms, and spun off like a dancer. She landed behind him, already crouching, and delivered a precise strike to his upper knee joint. The creature collapsed. When gravity returned, he landed hard, grunting in frustration, but unharmed. Next opponent, said Isthin, hiding surprise. One by one, opponents came. One by one, Elena dropped them. Not with brutality, but with economy. Precision. Grace. No wasted movement. No cruel finishes. Just complete control. By the time the last cadet stood panting, his pride bruised more than his body. The entire hall had grown quiet again. Elena stood at the center, hands behind her back. Commander Isthin walked forward slowly. Where did you learn to fight like that? My mother taught me, Elena said simply. Earth styles, judo, Krav Maga, Wing Chun, and improvisation. Then I adapted them to coalition species. You adapted techniques to species you'd never met. I read every combat log in the coalition archive before I arrived. Isthin stared. What? To survive. Later that day, in a mental evaluation chamber, Dr. Melly Vierin watched her from behind a translucent partition. She's not unstable, she told the tribunal. She's disciplined, focused, resilient. The slap didn't break her composure. Neither did the tribunal. Not even isolation. One of the officials asked, does she seek revenge? Not at all. She wants one thing, respect. But not everyone was convinced. In the dormitories, resentment festered. Cadet Zeron, a reptilian from the planetary militia of Dravik, slammed his locker shut. We can't let her get away with this. A few others nodded, species from planets that had always looked down on Earth. She humiliated a general and now walks around like a hero, Zeron hissed. She needs a lesson, one she won't walk away from. They didn't plan an attack in the open. Instead, they chose the zero-G maintenance bay, a place with no cameras, no instructors, no witnesses. Just tools, floating crates, and gravity set to randomize every minute. That night, Elena walked into the bay, summoned for a personal evaluation session. The lights were dim. The trap was sprung. For cadets, different species, all armed with training rods, non-lethal, but painful. Rios, Zeron said, blocking the exit. This is just a demonstration. You're not better than us. Elena's breath was steady. You know this is recorded. Audio sensors are embedded in the wall panels. No one's listening, and you won't talk. They moved in. She didn't step back. The first swing came from her left. She ducked and let her attacker's momentum carry him forward, then used his own mass against him, redirecting him into a floating crate. The second charged. Elena twisted in midair, planted her foot on a handrail, and launched into a spin kick that caught him under the chin. Zeron lunged with a growl, rod raised overhead. She caught his arm, locked it, and bent his wrist backward. Not enough to break, just enough to make him scream and drop the weapon. The fourth hesitated, watching the others groan in low gravity. Elena looked at him calmly. Still think I'm not one of you? He dropped his rod. Security arrived 2 minutes later, drawn by the noise and auto sensor flags. Elena sat quietly, not resisting, her breathing even. The tribunal met again, but not to judge her. This time, it was the attackers under review. Zeron and his co-conspirators were suspended, pending reassignment. Commander Isthan publicly condemned the act, stating, Cadet Rios responded with more restraint than many of you could muster under pressure. She's not a threat. She is a standard. Later, as Elena returned to her bunk, a datapad buzzed with a private message. From General Tarn. You embarrass me in front of the galaxy. I will not forget that. If you think this is over, you are mistaken. I challenge you. Official duel. 1 week. No weapons. No rules, but honor. Elena stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back, I accept. The duel that changed everything. The arena was nothing like the training rooms. It was ancient, a ceremonial combat sphere orbiting the neutral moon of Brella 9. Built by the First Coalition over 1,000 years ago, it had no corners, no floors, no safe zones. Just a zero-gravity chamber that rotated every minute, disorienting even the most seasoned warriors. The duel had been sanctioned under Article 17.4, Combat of Honor, a relic clause invoked only when the damage to reputation was considered greater than what politics could patch. Elena Rios stood inside the airlock chamber, stretching her arms in silence. No armor, no weapons, only a lightweight combat suit lined with neural dampeners to prevent lethal strikes. Her dark eyes remained steady, her breath even. Dr. Villarin had warned her about the danger. Commander Isthan had tried to talk her down, but she had already decided. Across the sphere, General Tarn flexed his still-bandaged arm. He had refused healing nanites to let the bones mend naturally. He wanted the pain, needed it. The duel began with a long, resonant chime, the sound that had once preceded the deaths of warlords and kings. The doors opened. Elena floated forward first, limbs relaxed, making small corrections with the fingertips on her suit's grip nodes. Tarn launched like a missile, barreling toward her with a war cry that rattled the inner walls of the chamber. She spun to the side, letting him pass. He snarled and corrected, but the environment turned, gravity shifted laterally, and suddenly they were tumbling together, pulled in opposite directions. Tarn grabbed a wall handle, yanked himself into the new down, and launched again. This time, he clipped her shoulder, hard. Elena spiraled midair, caught herself on a ceiling rail, and flipped backward, landing silently. He laughed. You're fast, little mammal, but speed won't save you forever. It doesn't have to, she replied. Just long enough. He charged again. She let him close this time. At the last second, she moved, not away, but toward him. She grabbed his forearm, rotated her hips, and redirected his momentum into the wall. The chamber's gravity blinked again, and they both were airborne, colliding mid-spiral. He grabbed her by the throat. She didn't panic. She drove her knee into his inner elbow, once, twice, forcing his hand to open. She pushed off his chest, flipping backward, and used a floor handle to slingshot behind him. She hit him with a sharp elbow to the neck, forcing him to crash into the chamber wall. But he recovered fast. This wasn't a training match. This was war. Karn lunged again, this time fainting low before spinning and slamming his shoulder into her ribs. She grunted, knocked off balance, air knocked from her lungs. He pressed the advantage, tried to pin her in a gravity pocket. "You're finished," he growled, eyes blazing. Elena remembered her mother's voice then. Never meet brute force head-on. Use its weight. Let it fall into itself. She shifted her weight, braced with one foot against the wall, and used his own motion to roll them both. She locked her legs around his torso, trapped his arm, and twisted hard. Karn roared in pain, but she didn't break the joint. She held it just shy of the snap. "Do you yield?" she asked, breath hot in his ear. "Never." She shifted again, this time releasing his arm and wrapping around his throat. Not to choke, to control, to stop him without breaking him. "Yield." Silence. Then, at last, he tapped twice against her forearm. The chamber went still. The crowd, watching from across the galaxy, erupted into stunned silence. Later, the official statement from the Galactic Tribunal read, "In accordance with Coalition Duel Protocol, Cadet Elena Rios is declared victor. General Tarn yielded under regulation. No further honor claims permitted." The Galnet was ablaze. Human Cadet defeats Threxian General in official duel. Elena Rios, the name that changed the Coalition. The wrist. The duel. The war of respect. On Earth, children reenacted the duel in parks and schoolyards. Statues of Elena were already being drafted. On Threxia, the elders held private councils, forced to acknowledge, for the first time, that humans were not prey nor pets. They were peers. Commander Isthan called her into his office 2 days later. "You've made my job difficult," he said, handing her a datapad. "What is it?" "Transfer order. Effective immediately." "To where?" He gave a rare smile. "The Coalition War College. Officer Track. You're the first human ever admitted." She stared at the pad. Her hand trembled slightly. "I didn't do this for a promotion," she said. "I know," he said. "That's why you earned it." That night, Elena walked alone through the Hall of Founders, where the statues of heroes and generals from 100 Worlds stood. Some were monstrous, some angelic. Some carved from crystal, others forged in steel. At the far end, a new pedestal stood under construction. Her name was already etched into the base. Cadet Elena Rios, Earth. She stood. We listened. She stood there quietly, letting the weight of it settle, not as a burden, but as a beginning. The galaxy would never see humans the same way again, and they would never forget the day the general struck her. And she answered in 5 seconds.